Now, one of the big issues in this federal election is energy policy, climate change and electricity prices. But imagine you live a 15-hour drive from the nearest town in one of the hottest, sunniest and driest spots on the planet, the West Australian desert.
Yeah, if ever there was a spot to get your electricity from the sun, you would imagine that that might be it. But many of the most remote communities in the Pilbara still get electricity from diesel generators. And that's something that Robby Chibawe wants to change. He's the CEO of the Puntukurnu Aboriginal Medical Service. He joins us from Newman in WA. Robby, thanks for being here. Your organisation runs health clinics in 4 very remote West Australian desert communities. How do they get their electricity right now?
Yeah, at the moment, we get all our power from diesel machines from the communities. We provide services in there.
What would be involved in getting solar to those communities?
So it will just need an investment, an upfront investment, to basically install solar panels on the clinics and the housing stock we have over there. And pretty much, I think it will be the very cost-effective and cheaper way of having power out there as opposed to the diesel we are using at the moment. Just to give you in context, at the moment we are paying close to $30,000 a month just to maintain, those clinics, just to have power in those clinics out in the desert. So can you imagine that, initial investment from solar is done, would not be paid, apart from maintenance, nothing else really.
And the West Australian government has pledged almost $12 million to providing solar electricity generators in the Kimberley, in the north of WA, but just not to the very hot, dry areas of the Pilbara where you work. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's a very commendable move, I think, from the government to begin to install solar in remote Kimberley remote. But my point is that, look, I think it's commendable, but also maybe it needs to be extended when time or resources allow to cover the desert communities as well.
Where exactly are these 4 clinics that you run that you want to be provided with solar power?
So the first one, which is just 2.5 hours drive from Newman, northeast of Newman, is Jigalong, and that's the biggest. And then 6 hours drive from Newman, you've got Bangor, which is also called Cotton Creek. Then you've got about 10 hours drive from Newman, you've got Punmu. And then 12 to 15 hours drive, we've got Kunawaji, which is also called Well 33.
And those 12 to 15 hours drive, are they just straight through desert?
Yeah, it's basically through the desert. So you have to cut the journey. You drive from Newman up to Mababa, spend the night, and then if you're going to Kunawaji, then the following day, you drive all the way in the desert until you reach the community.
It's a good reminder of just how enormous and flat and brown this continent that we inhabit actually is. If you did get solar power to these communities where they're able to generate solar power for themselves, would you still need some kind of backup diesel for occasions when the sun doesn't shine?
Yes, so and that's very rare, like maybe sort of few days in a year really, when we've got cyclones and stuff like that. Most of the time, being the desert, as you know, there's a lot of sun, so it would be fine.
This is one of the hottest inhabited parts of the entire planet. Is there air conditioning there, and is that a major burden on the power supply?
You need air conditioning every time because it can get hot. It can get sometimes 55 degrees, hot. So you need, reliable power supply. But at the moment we're using diesel. So you can imagine how much we are burning and how much we are using.
Is it more difficult to repair a solar unit than it is to repair a diesel generator? And is there the know-how inside these communities? If you're talking about places that are 12, 15 hours drive away from the nearest community, is there any danger that the complexity of repairing a solar equipment could be an impediment?
It's an issue to be looked at, but from what we've seen, basically, they need, occasional cleaning and maintenance, but not as complex or probably not as expensive as the diesel machines.
What are the benefits for the climate of transitioning? I assume that these small communities are not large carbon emitters.
They are not large carbon, but it's cost effective. This is power you get, and I mean the future of power supply is renewable energy. So apart from being cost effective out there in the desert, but that's the future.
So, Robby, what do you want to see happen? Do you want to see the WA government basically extend the funding that they've provided to communities in the Kimberley, to those communities in the Pilbara as well, for solar power?
That would be really good. Just for in context as well. So the Commonwealth government just built 2 new clinics in Punmu and Parnngurr. So these clinics are basically large and bigger than the old ones. We've had to put very little amount of solar on those to just supplement the the diesel powered one. But imagine if all those, at the moment we have to switch off air cons, the other part of the clinic, so that the load is not overloaded. So imagine if those new clinics we had, they were completely powered by solar. That would be quite cost effective, and also would be able to use every room in that clinic without having to worry about power overload.
Robby, great to talk to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much.